welcome to Season 3 of the Middle-aged Bodcast with me, Raging Rich.
And me, T.A. Shelano.
And T.A., we are back. It is Bodcast Bootcamp, and we have a lot of things to talk to our listeners about as we return for our third season. So is there anything you want to have a little chat with people about?
Well, there's a few things to raise, Rich. We are obviously back now for Season 3, but this is going out on the 4th of February. But much like other things, we're recording earlier. So it is Saturday, the 11th of January. Firstly, it's 6 months since we recorded the first ever episode of the Middle-aged Bodcast. So that's amazing. That we're still going at this. And today is our 22nd recording. How we've achieved this, I don't really know. Great guest episodes, really enjoyed it. So there's that. So I think we're looking back and reflecting on that. Now, some of our listeners were not happy that we didn't go as much into the weigh-in and the fitness and all the rest of it in Season 2. And we did touch on that in our last episode on New Year's Eve. So I thought it would be good if we did a recap of where we started and where we're now at. Does that sound reasonable, Rich?
That sounds absolutely fine. Let's go.
So, at the beginning of Season 1, I weighed 19 stone and 6 pounds, which is 123.6 kilos. And you weighed 20 stone and 1 pound, which is 127.7 kilos. By the end of Season 1, I'd reduced by 7 pounds to 18 stone 13 pounds, which is 120.5 kilos, and you were down to 19 stone 3 pounds, which is 122.2 kilos, and you were obviously the winner of Season 1. Now, Season 2, we did start weights, and I was 19 stone, which is 120.9 kilos, and you were 19 stone 4, which is 122.7 kilos. But alas, we did not carry on the weigh-in journey, which I think we both admit was a mistake. So this morning, we have got back on the scales for the first time in quite a long time. And I don't know what I want to say here. I'll get into it maybe shortly. But I am, as of this morning, 19 stone 5 pounds, which is 123.2 kilos. You are still 19 stone 4 pounds, which is 122.7 kilos. Which means, for the first time in podcast history, from recorded weights, you weigh less than me. It's only a pound, but a pound's a pound, right? And I can't tell you how motivating that was. Having stepped on those scales, right? I went downstairs and I did Sean T this morning in terms of, right, you got to sort yourself out here, TA. This is not on. Now, I will caveat that I did have a bad last 2 or 3 months of 2024 for various reasons. And so I am not going to attack myself too harshly, but it is the motivation I need, and I am ready and raring to go.
Can I just say, when did you become Raging T.A. Shelano? Because that just sounded like you had a bit of a rant at the fact that I was beginning the season at a lower weight, and me being the calm one. I mean, I am apparently accused of being a bit too calm, but we shall see about that.
Well, you know, I'm competitive, Rich, and
yeah, I do know. I've known you for nearly 24 years now,
and you know, considering at the start of Season 1 you were a good few pounds heavier than me, to get to this point 6 months later it was a strange moment for me to go, oh my word. You did have too good a Christmas, you know? Or too bad a last 2 or 3 months of 2024, TA, and you need to sort yourself out. But I'm motivated. You know, I have done Sean T for the last couple of mornings, sort of getting back into sort of mindful around food. I'm not going for this new year, new me type approach. I'm sort of definitely not focusing on that. But also, I've got to put this in because this is a great anecdote, and you don't know about this yet. But Mrs. Shelano is trying to be helpful as well in inspiring my weight loss fitness journey. Because we had somebody bought us a lot of what you'd call these chocolate biscuit bars. Not big ones, like small bars, right? And what she's done is she's put a load of them in a clear plastic tub in the fridge. And without telling me, she'd wrote on the tub, 2025, weekend consumption only, thank you. Right? Which is a very passive-aggressive way of trying to inspire somebody to eat more healthily and be better. So thank you, Mrs. Shelano, for that. I mean, it's the sort of same message that you'd see. You know when you leave a pub and it says, please leave quietly out of respect for our neighbours. And you think, well, that's great, but you've just served people all this booze. I mean, alcohol consumption and, quietness don't go hand in hand. But I thank her for it all the same.
Can I just say, T.A., I get the impression that because Greg from MasterChef is no longer doing the show after what's happened, and of course that other show he was working on for the BBC, Eat Well for Less, it does sound like Mrs. Shelano is trying to become his replacement on Eat Well for Less with the whole, don't eat this at certain times of the day and at certain points of the week.
I think for legal reasons we won't talk about Greg. But
is this where I've got to say we'll get Matt Murdock on the case again?
Don't bring those ridiculous superhero references in this early to season 3. It's bad enough I turned up here and you were in some sort of Marvel snood this morning that's been bought you for Christmas. But no, I think the interesting thing about you say about replacing people on cooking, we'll get into it later on in this episode, but surely it should be you. Because the other thing that most people complain about, Rich, was that you have spent the longest time ever making a chicken satay, but you did do it New Year's Eve, and I am going to be asking you about that in this episode. So maybe Greg's replacement isn't Mrs. Shelano, it's Raging Rich.
Well, maybe we should just break the fourth wall again and say it wasn't really on New Year's Eve, but it was. No, we can keep going. We can leave this in. It's fine. Because I do think we need to... We did post it on social a little bit about the satay as well, so I think we have already given the game away that it was slightly beforehand.
Okay, if we're in this particular zone... The Christmas Eve and New Year's episodes.
We don't need to get
recorded on the 14th of December. Okay? This is our first recording for 4 weeks.
When have you become so raging and so against the grain with things? What's going on? How have we switched roles?
I don't know, because the way things have just turned out is where it's at. But on a non-fitness related point, Rich, you'll know I'm working on a second book.
Yes.
A follow-up to The Doctor's Hidden Patients. And I have set myself a 100-day writing challenge, which I'm sort of covering on social media and on my website, shelanobooks.co.uk. I am. One thing I am very pleased to report thus far is that since New Year's Eve, I have written just over 5,000 words on the book, and I'm now around the halfway point.
Very good. Fantastic.
So I'm really, really pleased with that, and I'm trying to definitely get into the mindset of this challenge of writing every day. So, this morning I got up early, even though it's Saturday morning, I've done Sean Tea, and I've wrote some words for the book, and I'm at a writer's retreat tomorrow, which is usually really helpful for me in focusing on writing and progress and whatnot. So at the moment it's a build phase, I would say, and I want to try and maintain a better consistency through the year. Now I want to hear a little bit more about your plans, Rich.
Well, I think my plans are going to be improving the cooking and getting a little bit more of that going on.
Yeah, well, we are going to cover the satay shortly. I mean, I'm sure listeners are at this point going, don't you think this has gone on long enough? But if you can wait just a few more minutes, the interview of the man with the satay is coming, I promise you. But I know you've been doing some other cooking as well, Rich, and you've got obviously plans afoot. What about on your fitness journey and your weight loss? What's your thoughts there?
I do think some of it has been... I've been eating a lot better, and it's been... I have to refer to her because she loved your reference to her in a previous episode of My Lady Friend. I'm really sorry. But, yeah... I think now that I'm eating properly, now that I'm actually eating good food, eating a lot less processed stuff for sort of main meals, and trying to just do a little bit more myself on the cooking sort of side of things. And I will say, for Christmas, my parents did get me an air fryer, which has been a massive game changer.
Yeah, I love the air fryer too. They're very, very helpful. And yeah, so I think the interesting thing I would bring in at this point, Rich, that it's just an observation from me. I've noticed since your sort of rendezvous with your lady friend is that we went out for a curry last week, didn't we, Rich? With driver Dave, because nobody'd seen him for a little while, and he was keen for a meet up. So early New Year, so where you want to get your health and fitness journey started, it was drinks and a curry with driver Dave, and you were there. But what I noticed, Rich, interestingly, is that you were consuming definitely, I think, less food and drink that evening than you used to, and certainly less than me, which probably explains why we're in the position that we're in. So I need to take a bit of a leaf out of your book there on the old consumption around that when you're out and about. So it's interesting to see and witness that, I think. And you're clearly being then more mindful around your calorie consumption, etc.
You know what though? It's not something that's being said, or like I'm not being told eat less, drink less. I just want to point that out.
It's happiness, isn't it?
Well, it's just sort of a mindset of things. I just sort of feel sometimes like I don't need to have as much of a drink or something to eat. I mean, I did find last week the food was delicious, but it was just a lot to eat for me at the time, and I think, like I say, I've started cutting things down a little bit more, and that's really helped me. I mean, it hasn't helped so much over Christmas. There are things where I have still eaten a lot of madness, but not to the level I used to, and I think that's been a much better thing. And certainly just trying to cut those things down and cooking properly. And I know we're going to talk about the satay, but I have to mention that I also, last weekend, I made some soup. And so I can't keep calling her my lady friend, even though she loved that term. But yeah, we went to the shops and bought some sweet potatoes, some onions, and I made the soup. I completely made it. I had no assistant. I was obviously verbally guided through what to do. But yeah, I made soup, roasted the veg, and then blended it all up, added some hot water to sort of make the consistency of the soup. And it was delicious. It was amazing. And I actually, and this is the thing, we were talking about the food and the consumption. I had some left over. So I've been given some left over to bring back home with me, and I had that for my lunch, and it was absolutely delicious. And then on the evening, I thought, well, I'll go to the shop and I'll get a pizza. Now, normally, when I'd have a pizza, I'd get a garlic bread and I'd get a pizza, all to myself, which is wrong, I know, but I did the same thing. And I have to admit, I started eating the pizza and I went, I'm full. This isn't as nice to eat as the soup I had earlier, which was obviously something I had made. So I am starting to find that as much as I used to really dislike cooking, when I'm cooking for other people, it's much better. And I think that's the thing. I've been doing a lot more of that, cooking for myself, but also cooking for people. Did a bit of stuff over Christmas for my parents as well. So it's just been much more enjoyable doing that. And I think because of that, it's kind of helped me a little bit with getting a bit more motivated to get in the kitchen and do a bit more.
Well, I think this is it. It's Raging Rich's recipe is the cookbook that we need. This is for the person who's at the most basic of their skills and needs support. You're going to be the inspiration and guiding light. By the end of this season, you'll be 14 stone. And you'll be challenging Jamie Oliver.
I'm not a big fan of Jamie Oliver, if I'm honest, with his cookbooks, because they're quite complicated, I find. But
I agree with you on that. I've found that when I've tried out different recipes, some of his are a little bit complicated for the novice. Certainly, Mrs. Shelano likes his books, but she's at a much more advanced stage of cooking when she's not writing passive aggressive messages in marker pen on plastic containers. But now, the moment the world, well, some people in the world, have been waiting an awfully long time for. We're here now to listen to the most famous chicken satay ever. Raging Rich, I want to know how you found cooking the chicken satay that I selected for you to cook. What feels like about 4 years ago now, but 4 weeks ago you did it. Tell us, how was that?
I have to say there's some really funny bits to all of this. So, for example, the prep time on the recipe that was there was something like, I think 15 or 20 minutes. I think I spent 45 minutes on the prep injuries. But I did really enjoy doing it. So I think I did quite well. I sourced all the ingredients myself. I did not rely on anyone to purchase them for me. So I did get given a list, obviously, by my lovely other half. Is she my other half? If we just, I don't know how the term responds to it. My lady friend. I did get.
I was going to say, there's two things that pick up there. One, how are you referring to? Is she your lady friend? Is she your other half? I don't know. Lady friend half. When you said you sourced the ingredients yourself and nobody collected them for you.
She gave me a list.
Yeah.
She listed off what I had to get. She found a recipe that was not the recipe in the book that we went with.
Right.
And she found this recipe and gave me the list of ingredients and said, right, these are what you need to go and get. I went and got them all. I went to various different places to do that. So obviously the normal shop over the road that I'll go to that doesn't always have everything that I need. I did also go to quite a big Asda on my way back from work one day and get a few things as well. So sourced all of the ingredients, got all that ready, and then obviously my lady friend came round and I'm really getting, like, it's really strange calling it that. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I don't know. What are we going to... Is she going to have an actual title? You can't keep saying lady friend. This takes too long. Should we sort of abbreviate it to like LF?
LF.
LF. I like that. My LF came
My
round.
LF. So LF came round and...
What on earth? Yeah, go on.
So yeah, I'm trying to tell the story here.
Okay, I want to hear it. She helped you with your satay.
So she got the recipe and essentially... documented the creation of the satay, which is why there is a photo on our social media, on Instagram, of the satay process. And yeah, it was brilliant. So essentially all the prep work, so obviously cutting up the chicken, getting the measurements weighed out for everything and all of that, with the making the sauce, so making the satay sauce. Now, I'm not good with getting my hands dirty. I don't like it, right? Mm-hmm. So there's two weirdly contradictory things here, right? So the cutting up of the chicken, getting scissors and cutting up chicken, I hated that. I don't like the sliminess of the chicken. Really didn't like that, right?
Do you know what? I'm going to agree with you on that. I hate cutting up chicken too.
So I hated that. So then it's, well, right, now I've got to mix all this chicken up in the sauce that's been made. Did that with my hands. Didn't care at all. So this is what I found so weird. For someone who doesn't like getting his hands dirty, I didn't mind the actual getting the sauce over all the chicken, but the actual cutting of the chicken, when it's just this slimy, horrible chicken, didn't like that. Now, I can confirm there was no garlic getting in the eyes. So, based upon your story from a previous episode, I was quite pleased on that. However, there was one thing that was said to me that I feel I made a mistake in this whole thing where you set me this recipe. And that was, I was told, the fish pie that you initially selected and I vetoed would have been a lot easier to do than the chicken satay.
Well, I mean, I'm interested in your thought process, because I don't want to sort of turn this into the chicken satay journey, but it kind of became when we looked at the book and I suggested the fish pie and you were just totally sort of no, and then the chicken satay you sort of half thought might be easier, then spent an eternity working out how and when you were ever going to do that. It's interesting that you now think that the fish pie would have been easier. And then my next question is going to be, so when are you doing the fish pie?
Well, apparently that's going to happen at some point. Although, can I just say, it's not just pie that they're putting there. Someone will get that, by the way.
Yeah, but who? I've got no
My
idea.
lady friend will get that.
You can't start doing little, in jokes with your LF. during the episode. That's not fair to me and the listeners, is it? Come on. Dear me. This is insane. What are you doing? What are you doing? I don't do messages to Mrs. Shelano. I'm looking for a new Mrs. Shelano. No, you know.
Terrible. But yeah,
she won't write passive-aggressive messages to me in the fridge.
But I'm just looking back over some of the photos from the chicken satay just to sort of remind myself of some of the processes, and I've got to admit, as I say, I mean, the cutting of the chicken, as I say, I did not enjoy it all. I zested a lime, that was quite interesting. I'd never done any of that before, so a bit of zesting and some juicing and all that kind of stuff. Made the really nice sauce.
Can I just point out to listeners, because obviously this is an audio-only podcast, you're currently showing me photographs of you in a very fetching Superman apron, actually creating this culinary delight, and then I can see the scissors for cutting the chicken, and then the finished product, which does look very, very good. And I understand your LF was pleased with the final product?
Yes, indeed. It went very well. I was very, very pleased as well at the fact that I didn't poison her in any way, so that was a really good success.
Well, I should hope not, really. That would have been slightly disappointing. And it's probably a bigger risk if you do cook a fish pie, I guess, than chicken, maybe. I don't know. Chicken can be difficult, but fish can also be a tricky one for that kind of stuff. So, you know, baby steps.
I think with the guidance of LF, I will be all right.
Okay.
She has helped me massively with my cooking. I am honestly, I cannot believe in the short time that we've been together how much of an improvement I've had in actually getting into the kitchen. One, enjoying being in the kitchen, and two, actually making some really tasty food.
Well, I, for one, am looking forward to releasing Raging Rich's recipes at shelanobooks.co.uk later this year, where we will look at how you make soup, chicken satays, fish pies, your signature enchiladas. You know, I can't wait for this. You're going to get into like baking as well, do cakes.
I have in the past done a bit of baking, you know.
Okay.
Very, very long time ago. So that's a whole other story. But yeah.
Well, no, you've made that sound suspicious now.
Well, no, just like, you know, when you're at school and you have to do stuff and
school baking. Oh, that's, you haven't been at school since 1976.
Whoa!
All right.
1998.
Okay, well, either way, you can't be relating. I thought you were going to say at some point you'd actually done some sort of...
I did help my mum make her signature cheese scones once. That was fantastic. That was a few years back. But the hilarious story behind that was that I helped make them, and then my brother came back from work, saw that I was there, and was like, oh no, like, my brother's been round, what's he doing here? And I was like, oh, you know, just come see our mum, see what's going on. And our mum's like, oh look, made these cheese scones. My brother starts eating them, goes, oh, these are some of the best ones I've ever had. And then she says, your brother's helped make them. And then my brother just turns around and he sort of goes, oh, not sure about that.
Well, you've given me a great idea now. It's seen as you're advancing through your cooking journey, if we're going to call it that. I think what you need to host is a dinner party for a small number of people where you do 3 courses. I'm thinking soup, satay, scones, the 3 S's of Raging Rich.
Believe it or not, and I am digging a hole for myself here, but LF did actually suggest potentially a bit of a dinner party style, me cooking some courses. So there could actually be something of that, and I'm really sorry that I've now put this on the podcast.
I'm ringing my lawyers on Monday, and I'm having that added into the season 3 contracts because I think that's a winner, and I actually think we should do an episode later on where we talk about a dinner party special podcast. I think that's got to be done. But yeah, just before we get into you signing that new contract, I just thought I'd better point out I was joking, Mrs. Shelano. Obviously, I'm not looking for another Mrs. Shelano who won't write passive-aggressive notes to me. I do obviously still wish for you to remain as Mrs. Shelano.
Poor Mrs. Shelano. I've got to defend her again.
Well, somebody has to, I suppose.
I mean, it's already been established that if you get divorced, I'm going to be her friend and not yours. This is what's been written into the divorce proceedings, apparently.
Written into divorce? I've spoken to my lawyers. You don't understand how expensive divorce is. And I'm not talking about the marriage. I'm talking about this podcast. You don't understand. I own half your house. No.
When did I sign that away? That's terrible. Anyway, I think it's about time we started wrapping up the episode a little bit.
Yes. There are a couple of things completely off. Well done on the satay.
Thank you very much.
It did take a long time, but
it didn't take as long as you make it out to be. But yes, it did take a while.
I'm not going to go back and look at exactly how long it was from when I picked it out in the book to when you made it. I'm not going to do that, but it was a reasonable.
Well, I'm pretty sure in
time.
the finale of the last season, you said it took me a year, and we hadn't even been recording the podcast for a year.
In the time it took you to make that satay, they have built housing estates. But let's not touch on that. Progress is progress, and I think that should probably be the kind of the mantra of season 3 Bodcast Bootcamp, is that progress, however small, is progress. It's certainly how I'm applying it into the writing challenge, and probably every week of the weigh-in as well. I would suggest. But there's a couple of things, just to point out. We obviously interviewed Saffron Asteria in season 2, and Idiosyncrasy is now live as of New Year's Day, and is building up great traction for independent authors. So definitely want to shout that out, and massive congratulations to Safi on the great work that she's doing. Really enjoying as well listening to her podcast Booked, which goes out every Sunday. So wanted to point that one out. What are you going to do fitness-wise? I think that's one thing before we wrap up this episode. What are you going to do fitness-wise?
I just don't know.
That reminds me.
Great with my fitness. I need to
that
think
reminds me, and we have touched on this, and I know you got slightly offended, but we also, guests will remember, we did an episode with Amy P on fitness, and Amy P did suggest a New Year sort of, was it burpees challenge or something, I think was the gist of one of the ideas that came out.
Yeah, but can I just point out, the reason I took offence to this was the way you sent it to me was as if, well, there's no chance you're going to be doing those, Rich. And I thought, what? And you are?
Excuse me, hang on a second. As a veteran here of the wonderful Sean T, I am not completely adverse to having had to do burpees, okay? I was just thinking that might be tough. And I also know you've had knee trouble. I know I had plant pot knee last year, and touch wood, at the moment, that's okay. I thought that might be a bit of a leap. And she did suggest instead you could try squats. Now, well on this whole thing with you sort of cooking and your weight loss, are you going to commit to a fitness plan? Maybe the squats, daily squats?
Tell you what, let's have a little think about that. Mm-hmm. And then maybe in episode 2 or 3, when we've got a proper plan, we can confirm what I've been doing. Mm-hmm. But we'll have a little think. And then in a future episode, we will reveal what I have been doing. But we need to have a little bit of a think about a viable... Because the exercise bike hasn't really been doing the thing it should have been. No. It's more of a... I'm just going to dump stuff on the seat. Like if I've got a blanket or something, I'll put it over the seat and leave it there.
And by the end of season 3, you'll be in your Lycra doing a Sean T workout. Is that where you're going to get to?
Let's not go that far. Although, if Sean T ever comes on the show, as I've said, if we can get Sean T to even just shout the show out, I may consider doing an insanity session. So, broadcasters, start tweeting out Sean T if you want to have me doing a insanity session.
I love Sean, as you know. I cannot see why on earth he would be inspired to do this shout out to get you to do one of his workouts. It's just not. It's just. I love it if he'd do it, but I just can't see it. I just can't see it. Maybe we'd need to film you doing it and then send it in and then see what his analysis
maybe so.
Be.
Sean, the challenge is on.
Oh dear me. So I think that's another thing that cooking's obviously dropped off a little bit for me. So I'm also looking to revisit that. I'm sure I won't find any passive aggressive notes on salad, will I, in the fridge from Mrs. Shelano? No. So yeah, I need to get back onto that too. But yeah, so it's early in the new year, not as early as when you'll be listening to this, but please follow our progress. We are back. We are committed. We will still probably do some guest interviews as well.
Yes.
At some point during this season. Yeah. So welcome back.
Can I also just say before we finish, obviously we probably need to put a visual representation of this, but a big thank you to our good friend, and again, I don't know if we're allowed to name her or not. Or do you want to give her a nickname?
Is she going to get a nickname? We need to, for a second, let's have a think about... So, I suppose it's Boyzone's #1 fan, Charlotte. Is that her reference?
Yeah, we can go with that. But she got us.
No, but if we stick with it, we're stuck with it no matter what.
Oh, is this where we've got to sing no matter what? Again.
No, not again. We're not doing that again. Not doing that again.
But yeah, we actually both received the same gift from her for Christmas. Mm-hmm. And we have to say a massive thank you to Charlotte, because currently, while recording this episode, my version of the gift is here, and it is a Middle-aged Bodcast on-air sign that lights up and changes colour. It is absolutely fantastic, so thank you, Charlotte. We will get some evidence of said item on our socials so people can see what it looks like, but yes, absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much for that, and I suppose it's about the right sort of time to start wrapping up the episode, I suppose.
Yes indeed. Well, we're back, and thank you for sticking with us. Well, hopefully you are, and we'll continue to listen and enjoy as we progress through season 3 of the Middle-aged Podcast.
And our next episode, just to give you a little bit of a teaser for it, is going to be Modern Life is Rubbish, aka Raging Rich Actually Rages.
Well, it's about time, because that's something else that just, at the moment, you're just too relaxed.
Well, we'll see what happens in the next episode. But yes, we are back. It is Bodcast Bootcamp. Thank you very much to everybody who has been with us for the previous 2 seasons, and obviously now here with us for season 3. Thank you very much to anyone who has listened to even just one episode. We appreciate and love you all, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Two best mates here to take you to stand. Raging Rich and T.A. got your health in the hands. Williams, laughs and tales they tell. For beats and nights, the workouts, they're keeping it real. Oh, it's the Middle-aged